Good morning to you and welcome to Brighter Morning with Bhoe. When you hear that theme song, the Ganges and the Nile, beautifully played there on the tenor pan, you know that it's Brighter Morning with Bhoe. And this is Multicultural Television and you 97.5 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. We have two guests this morning whom I think you will enjoy. One is Dr. Rajendra Singh, and we will talk to him about IT matters. We will talk to him about cyber security issues. We'll talk to him about hacking and so on. This morning we had a story in which Israeli spyware, Pegasus, was known to be hacking into smartphones around the world of human rights activists, journalists, and so on. So we will have a little discussion about that with Dr. Singh. And then we will talk about the Haitian presidential assassination and its impact, its consequences with Professor Anthony Gonzalez. And we hope that you will stay with us on that particular matter. The Delta variant is going crazy in Asia. South Korea has a very, very serious problem now. They found a ship outside the shores with Korean sailors, and 80% of the ship was in fact infected. But it's also happening in Europe, all over. In England, for instance, they are celebrating Freedom Day as they open up today. And they are opening up the economy fully. But at the same time in England, you have increased hospitalizations in that particular country. And this vaccine issue and whether or not citizens should get the vaccine is also heating up around the world. So this is a discussion we will continue to pursue here. For instance, in St. Vincent, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves says that public sector workers who are not willing to take the vaccine to help prevent the spread of coronavirus will be required to test regularly to prove their status. In addition, he said they will have to meet the cost of the test. And we have a quote from him here. You have to pay for it, because what happens is this. Some employers, and they must speak the truth about it, are saying you either get vaccinated or come with a COVID test every Monday morning. Gonzalez said on the state-owned NBC radio. Well, why should the state pay for it when you don't want to take the vaccine? Why should we pay for your test every Monday morning? Why don't you take the vaccine? And therefore, that is heating up in the Caribbean. I imagine there will be other issues. The chairman of CARICOM and head of the government of Antigua Barbuda has also gone on record as saying that people have to get vaccinated. And we have our own discussion here in Trinidad and Tobago. And President Macron in France has taken a very, very strong position. He basically says you have to get vaccinated or else. And let me see if I can find what he says here. He says, I am in favor of the French line right now. I no longer have an intention of sacrificing my life, my time, my freedom, and the adolescence of my daughters, as well as their right to study properly for those who refuse to be vaccinated. This time you stay at home and not us. In France, those who do not get vaccinated will no longer be able to go to the restaurants, cafes from the beginning of August, cinemas and museums from July 21st, and get on airplanes or trains again from August. Alternatively, such citizens will have to submit a negative test, which will no longer be free, 49 euros. In St. Vincent, it will cost about 26 EC dollars. Macron then announced the vaccination obligation for medical personnel and those who work in contact with fragile people. So you see, this thing is heating up. Whether or not you should get the vaccine and whether or not the vaccine requirement should be enforced. And as I said before, it's really a challenge that has to do with human rights on the one hand. It has to do with the safety and security of people from a deadly virus in which variants are emerging. And finally, it has to do with protection of people and security, health security for people so that the economy can open up. Because you can't open up an economy if you have the virus raging and spreading all over the place. And unvaccinated people seem to be the principal targets now of the raging virus. In South Africa, the matter of former President Zuma and his trial continues. The riots have stopped. Significant numbers of police and army have been put on the streets. And that is something we will continue to follow as well. In Germany and Belgium, 194 people have died from floods. All right, and some people are calling for an investigation into that. And on Tuesday, this coming week, that's tomorrow, Jeff Bezos will make a journey into space. And he will have the youngest person ever to go into space, a young man of 18 years old. And he will have an older woman on space as well, who will be the oldest person to fly into space. So there are lots of things that are happening in the world. There are lots of things that are happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Meanwhile, we in Trinidad and Tobago are partially opening up today. Food is going to be available, curbside, delivery. Street food is also going to be available. And in that situation, Trinidad and Tobago is also opening up the economy. We had the manufacturing sector opening up. We had the construction sector opening up. And of course, the restaurant sector, even though it's curbside, is going to be opening up now. We have the vaccination drive in full swing, and we will see how this evolves. Okay? Do you have anything for me there? All right. So welcome again to Brighter Morning with Bhoe. This is Multicultural Television and U97.5 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio. And the show that you are watching is Brighter Morning with Bhoe. So we go now. Is Dr. Rajendra Singh on the line? He's not? All right, we don't have Dr. Rajendra Singh yet, but what we are going to do is engage him and talk to him about matters involving
Hi, good morning, I'm here.
Matters involving cybersecurity, the issue of digitization and digitalization. You would have remembered that we had a discussion with the Prime Minister on that, and he talked about that. So we're talking now to Dr. Rajendra Singh. Is he on? Is Dr. Singh on?
Yes, I'm here. I'm hearing you.
All right. I see you have a strange get-up there.
Oh,
So
sorry. Let me take off my work attire. Hold on a second. Sorry. Ah, yes. Sorry. That was my mistake. Sorry.
Okay.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you for
Good
having me on
morning.
to the program.
When you say it was a mistake, what you meant? What you mean?
Oh, you see in a while.
Huh?
Yeah. Well, that's the attire that usually have the hackers wearing.
Okay. So you did that to kind of uh, give an image of how
Yes,
hackers operate, right?
that's right.
And talking about that, this morning a story broke in which Israeli spyware known as Pegasus
Yes.
is being used all over the world by governments to hack into people's smartphones. And generally, the targets are human rights activists, and about 180 journalists in the world have been hacked. You are aware of this, and what does that portend for us?
Well, this is one of many type of exploits that people are using for different purposes, right? And this one actually happened to make the media because of the type of exploit it is and the targets. So I'm not familiar with the details of it. It is breaking news, but Pegasus has been around for a while, and definitely they have what you call an attack chain, and they have reached the point where they have command and control of the device. That is about the last phase of the attack chain. Command and control means that they have access to your cameras, to your microphone, and this one is called, I think, a zero click. Usually the user would interact and click on something and give up that access unknowingly. But this particular exploit actually utilize vulnerabilities that are in different applications on the phone. So it's actually, let's say it is not to be expected. It's just interesting that it is making the media, right? Of course,
Yes.
yes, Israel, the country itself, these things causes the hype in the media. So
Yes. Well, I think the reason why it is important is because Israel and the people and the company that makes it are
yes,
selling it principally to governments. And they have sold it to governments around the world. And the issue has become, the issue has really become the capacity of governments now to spy on its own citizens if it so determines that it will do that. So I think that is why it is becoming such a big issue. And we had
yes.
hacking recently in the world system, in the United States in particular. You had JBS, the largest meat processing company, and they paid a ransom, I think, of something like $11 million. And you had Colonial Pipeline, where they hacked Colonial Pipeline, and in order to keep the oil running through the pipeline, I think they paid something like $5 million US in order to get it back. They were subsequently traced by the FBI, and I think those hackers are in a lot of trouble. Could you comment on that a little bit?
Well, if you would permit me, first of all, to hack into your program. So I'm having some video problems. My video actually went a bit small there, so just ignore that for a little while.
Yeah,
So if you give me permission, I'll probably
guys, the team can get you bigger. They
just
have
want.
you bigger now.
Okay, good. So I yeah. So I'd like to get your permission to hack into your program. Do I have your permission to proceed?
Well, once it doesn't cause any damage beyond your hack intervention.
Okay, so a conditional hack. Okay,
Yes.
I think I could achieve that. So if you were asking us a question a while ago about
Hacking,
this colonial
pipeline, and JBS.
pipeline, right? So
Let him be
if
bigger
I
on the
were to
screen.
actually, yes, so
Take me off the screen and put him. Yes.
yeah, I'm getting, if you just permit me, I'm having a little technical difficulty here. So if let me see if I could fix it. Is seen better there, or the video is giving some trouble. But I think the guys, if you could ask the guys to just go back to the full screen for me.
You are on full screen right now.
No, right, and now, well, they're now adjusting it, right? So that I'm on full screen there now. So I have some technical difficulties. If you just allow me a few seconds, I'll get it fixed. Just hold on a second. Let me see if I could fix this. And it appears as though I'm getting somewhere here.
Yes, so you
So,
hacked into it, and instead of having Brighter Morning with
all
Bhoe, you
right.
put Brighter Morning with Raj. That's what I
Right.
can see.
Right. So this is what you call a simulated hack.
Okay.
Now,
So it is
normally,
possible to do that and cause some problems, cause some havoc.
that's right. So
And on the right
all hacks
hand of
tend
the
to be
screen, on the right hand screen of the screen, you have been hacked, and you have the
right.
skull mark and so on.
Yes.
What is that?
Well,
That is an indication from the hacker that you've been
uh,
hacked.
exactly. Hackers
Okay.
like to announce themselves, and then there are those who don't like to announce themselves. So
Okay.
because you give me permission, I'm just demonstrating a simulated hack. What this is showing you is normally you will not have your guest in control of your video.
Yes.
You would have expected to actually be seeing me in this view.
Yes. But you change it up by the hack,
But,
and you gain
but
control of the program.
exactly. So I can
Okay.
switch back and forth and
Yeah.
put whatever I want on the screen, and you have no control, except you do still have control. You can actually cut the video, right?
Yes.
Because we had an agreement not to actually disrupt the show, right?
Okay. All
So
right.
I'll just go back here. So
Okay. So we back to normal now. Is that it?
yes, we back to normal.
All right. Good. Well, why don't you tell our viewers something about yourself? You are a systems engineer at UWI, and you're responsible for cyber security on the St. Augustine campus.
Right.
What kind of challenges do you address every day, and what is the most formidable challenge you've had to address?
Well, I'll tell you about myself in a while. The most formidable challenge is something just like this. We have unexpected events that is initiated by an external party to disrupt the business process. And we have to be able to identify and actually mitigate those types of activities as quickly as possible so that you don't have that impact on the business.
Okay, so you scenario
The,
plan and you anticipate what might happen, and you try to prepare for it.
that's right. And in security, we have basically two categories, main categories. You have defensive and offensive. So my role is mainly a defensive role. You try to figure out what is going to happen and you put your defenses in place.
Okay.
The offensive security is more along the lines of you actually taking action against the particular perpetrators, the bad actors, the hackers, and bringing them down. That's a very difficult thing to achieve, and you need a lot of resources to do that. Sometimes you need it at the nation state level. So
Yeah,
it's not
I was reading
yes, sir.
recently that we are literally going to be short of cybersecurity experts in the world, and that
Yes,
it is a career that people should think of pursuing if they have the disposition, and that this is going to become an explosive area of involvement and employment and of management of security systems. Is that true? Can you speak to that?
yes. With the pandemic that we are in right now, this actually caused a lot of movement of businesses into the digital space. With more
Yes.
businesses going to digital space, you have more demands for IT and subsequently for security. So there is a shortage in Trinidad, in the Caribbean region, and that was prior to the pandemic. So there will be even a greater shortage now. So we do have to work on building capacity.
All right. So let's explore that a little bit. We had this COVID pandemic, and the consequence of this, one of the consequences of this pandemic, is that people have had to digitize and digitalize and basically move into cyberspace in order to organize and conduct their business. And this has been true of government, and this has been true of businesses, private sector. And that has created the conditions now where, with this expansion of engagement in cyberspace by business and government, you now have a security issue emerging that has to be attended to. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So there is some confusion. Let me just clear this up. There is some confusion between digitization and digitalization, right? So with digitization, that process is the process of taking your different physical systems, information, and so on, and converting it into ones and zeros, which you call bits.
Yes.
So basically, as an example, I could show you an example here. Here we have, let's say we have 10 different objects to represent. We just happen to choose the numbers 0 to 9. How do you actually get that? Let's say that's on your keyboard, 0 to 9, you're pressing those keys. How does that actually move from that physical active action into the digital world? Well, first of all, you have to develop a code for it. So here I develop a simple code. I said 0 is 0, 0, 0. Remember, you're going with these bits, which are ones and zeros. We say 1 will be 0, 0, 1, and so on and so forth, and we end up with all the way to 9. So we have each one of these a unique pattern of 4 bits. We have this agreement that will be 4 bits. So if we have a number to represent, we're pressing this 919072021 on your keyboard, and we're using this table to convert it. It will actually convert into this format, and we read it in blocks of 4 bits so that we could also decode it. So this table encodes and decodes that particular action of pressing the 0 to 9. In the same, so that is digitization. You're taking something in your analog world, whether it's music, whether it's a picture, and you're converting it into bits and ones, into bits, ones and zeros, and you have some coding scheme to encode it so that you could process this information now in the computer. With this particular code, for example, I could do additions, I could do subtractions, but we're not going to get into that detail. But that basically is digitization.
When you
And then you have,
just now,
sorry.
when you so let's deal with that first, which is that. Thank you for the technical explanation, but I think most people will want to understand that you can get things from paper, printed things from paper. You can get a photograph, or you could get information of any kind, then transmitted in digitized form into information in cyberspace on your computer. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So that's what I'm saying here. You press a 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
You have an agreed encoder, and it converts the binary, which is what the computer works with. It converts the digits, ones and zeros. So the same thing goes with pictures. If you
All right. Okay,
think of a picture,
I think we got the picture there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and you were going to show me what digitalization is. Is that correct?
That's right. So
All right. So hold on
Yeah.
just 1 minute. I want
Sure.
to play a clip from an interview that I did with the Prime Minister last week. And digitalization has become a big issue for the government, and the Prime Minister is advocating that. I will have the minister responsible for digitalization on the show next week, Monday. So I want to play the clip from the Prime Minister, and then you will talk about the digitalization that you want to illustrate there afterwards, and you'll make some comments on what he said. Okay?
Sure.
All right, let's play the Honorable Prime Minister.
Creation of a ministry led by a highly technical person who is able to grapple with what you have just said there, in understanding it and in driving the process. And we are currently engaged in sourcing our technical capacity largely among that cohort of young people for whom what you have just mentioned is their training and their outlook. So we are doing what has to be done. The digitizing of records, that was done in one ministry. Let's say the Ministry of the Attorney General. Before the registry and the AG office was digitalized, they entered into an arrangement, I think it was with UWI, to do exactly what you have said, which is to digitize the database. And I just said to you, we have prioritized 2 or 3 ministries to get it done. And what the ministry under Minister Bacchus is going to do is to drive other ministries, because you know, of course, we have not yet discussed resistance to change. The same way you have the phrase vaccine hesitancy, you will have digitization hesitancy. So that hesitancy, which is the behavior of people for whom this process was not part of their psyche and their training, we have to overcome that. And that is why this is going to be led by the highly trained people and the ones who can get them to cross that Rubicon. And we are engaged in that now. And all we need to do is to move from the talk to the work. And of course, we are going to get those voices who are going to resist.
All right, and I responded to the Prime Minister. We don't have it on the clip, but I said, well, that's the challenge, Prime Minister, getting from the talk to the walk. Okay? So could you comment on that and then take me to your illustration of digitalization as opposed to digitization?
Sure. I think that is very, very good foresight by the government to actually have a ministry and a minister in charge of digitalization. Certainly, the pandemic, that entire period for the last more than a year and a half that is ongoing, certainly showed some of the innovations that people could get involved with to move their businesses into the digital world. But you need to actually have policies and so on for that those types of activities. Otherwise, and our whole entire framework. So it's a massive undertaking. It is good foresight, and we have to see and bring in the expertise, as he says, to execute something like that. What is interesting is that you would normally find someone at such high level with management skills, leadership skills, and so on. I'm not saying Minister Bacchus don't have that. But what is surprising is that he worked his way from a technician all the way through. So he has that ingrained understanding of technology from the lowest level all the way to the highest level. And if you look at his background and his experience, he has the leadership qualities and the management capabilities to get the job done. So I'm looking forward to see how that whole thing would pan out. And definitely it is something that we need to do as quickly as possible. And again, it is good foresight,
All right.
right?
So take me to the digitalization now. Go ahead.
Sure. So, what is digitalization? I just mentioned what is digitization. Now, if you have to work in this digital world, you have to get your information, your products, for example, from digitize. Let me give you an example. Let us say you're selling these concrete pots on the Sir Solomon Hochoy Highway, right? The pandemic come and you have to close down. How do you, where is your customers? Your customers at home, they're on their computers. How do you get them to buy your product? Well, the first thing you have to do is go and probably take a quick method. Go and take some photographs of those pots and put them up on a website, add a payment system to it, and present it to the potential customers. That process where you're moving from your physical brick and mortar shop to the digital shop, you first digitize your picture, your product into pictures, you move it onto our website, and you add a payment system on. Customer could stay at home, view your products, choose one, and pay for it. Then you may now go and do a delivery system. You probably say, come and pick up, use messaging, pick up at so and so location, so and so time. Or you might get more sophisticated and say, we'll do delivery. Let's hire these a PH delivery system you develop, and you have our entire communication infrastructure associated with that. So from the time the order is made and paid for, the PH driver gets it, he goes, picks it up at the warehouse, and he drops it for you. So you never left your house. That process and adaptation from that physical business into the digital world, that is really digitalization. And then there is a further process, there's a further dimension. There's something called digital transformation. Now that you're online, you could reach larger markets. You can actually reach out to areas in the Caribbean. You're in concrete products, you're making concrete pots, you could expand it out into concrete pillars, hit the construction industry, not just the home user. So you have that opportunity now to reach out through this digital media, this website, to your Caribbean neighbors and sell your product, and even set up a whole delivery, improve your supply chain, your delivery chain, everything, and do that delivery. So that is what you call the digital transformation process, where you actually create a new business. Right? So
Okay, so that is wonderful from the business side. You want to
yeah.
address the issue of government and digital government a little bit? How you do that?
Well, I think that has been taking place for quite some time. I'm aware that the government has moved on to gov.tt and have been putting up all their ministries on the gov.tt. You have national security, you have health, and I think with COVID, it pushed them a little bit more to actually add systems in place, expand those systems. I would call that more transformations. They move past beyond digitalization into digital transformation. They are actually doing new things with those sites. They reaching the citizenry. They're reaching. They're actually making information available to some of our citizens that are abroad, something that you could never get at your fingertips before. So digital government has been going on for a while. It is there, and the pandemic is actually causing more transformation for the betterment of the whole ICT infrastructure.
So the process is improving and accelerating, you think?
That's right.
What about the interface between government and business? Because it's one thing to have digital government. It's another thing to have digital businesses, individual businesses. But how do you get the competitiveness and the capacity for innovation in the country? because there has to be an interface. For instance, business people talk about ease of doing business and all the obstacles in the way. How do you facilitate this process?
Well, it's your systems that let's take, for example, the customs. Businesses suffering a lot from the whole customs process where it's manual. If some of those processes are moved online and the business could actually submit documents and do clearance and so on online, get the feedback, and in the same way where you have the home user buying a product and getting delivery home, you could at least make that whole system mirrored for a business in the context of customs and clearance and picking up your products and things like that. So that's one example. You have to actually take all the different sectors and move from that whole manual process. The licensing area is not just in the front end for the people who are going to renew their permits and so on. You could actually link in the automobile industry when they're selling a vehicle. Things happen online. You can do the registration and so on online. So each one of those process actually needs to be reviewed and taken from that physical manual stage to digitization, to the digitalization, and hit the digital transformation. It's all the same thing, really.
So a government serious about digitalization would have to view all the elements of government that interface with business and business efficiency, competitiveness, and success. And they would also have to view all the needs of the citizen that are served by government agencies, and would then have to systematically, one by one, and looking at the issue of integration of the systems, the value chain, etc., they would have to address those things one by one with somebody having a comprehensive understanding of government, business, and society. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Not necessarily one by one, you could actually categorize it within your ministries and do it ministry by ministry and have things going on in parallel.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience that it can be pretty bad. I have a problem with my car, and then what happened was that they ordered the part. It took 3 weeks for the parts to get here, but 3 weeks have passed now and they can't get customs to give the parts to the company that has to fix the car. So those kinds of problems are that is 6 weeks you're talking about here, because we have a global problem with transportation. And then you have an internal problem, local problem, with customs being unable to process this stuff. So all of these things are issues that have to be fixed. And the problem that I'm raising for me, if you take the citizens of this country or the businesses of the country and you start to multiply those problems, you begin to see what happens to a society in terms of chaos, disorder, and inefficiency.
Exactly. So one of the things the Prime Minister said is the resistance to change. So I could tell you from experience, and probably way back in the 90s, I have a brother-in-law. He sent down a television set for his parents. And ahead of time, he came to Trinidad, and then I accompanied him to a shipping company. And what I saw there, we spent actually 3/4 day standing up, just waiting for the customs person to come and clear that and say, here, look, take it. And what I saw, why the process is like that, I saw people that were coming behind me and getting their items. And what I saw, an envelope passing. So when you have to move from a system that may have, now I'm not accusing the customs people of anything, I saw those things happening way back in the 90s, and a lot of accusations about these type of things happening. But you have a manual process that you're using to do things. People are comfortable in it, and some people may not want to change for those reasons. Those things you can deal with. But if you have any type of corruption taking place within that area, you get even more resistance to change, because when you move to the digital world here, you actually could track things better, do improve your process, find
You control
ways
over the process, yes.
actually account for what is going on, find problems in the systems, and improve on it.
All
So
right, thank
it
you very
is the resistance to change.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that. So in addition to digitization and digitalization and digital transformation and the interface between the customer view of what is needed from government and the business view of what government needs to do to support them, you also have to have human transformation and the restructuring of systems to make this possible, and you have to be prepared to deal with the elimination of corruption in the system that will sabotage the system. Is that correct?
That is correct. And then you're going to now reach into cybersecurity issues.
Right.
So
Well, that's
while you're now going to be addressing some of those issues that would have been taking place through your digital transformation, you have to put energies and resources into those type of things taking place online now. And this is your cybersecurity investment that you have to make. This here is what I was referring to at the beginning when you were speaking about Pegasus. The whole supply, the attack chain,
Yes.
right? You do reconnaissance, then you deliver your malware, you get it installed, well, you weaponize, sorry, do delivery, then you actually do the exploit, you install it in Pegasus case on the phone, so you now have command and control, and you now could achieve whatever objective. This is a standard attack chain, and we always on the lookout for this. Where have you reached in the depth of this chain to try to stop you? So with for example, the colonial pipeline issue that you spoke about, you mentioned at the beginning, that particular issue is probably one of the biggest hack in the US of recent times. What it did was to attack the payment system. They infiltrate the payment system and actually reach all the way inside to command and control, and was able to exfiltrate data out. And then in that particular case as well, they encrypted the customer data on their own machines so that they do not have access to the data. And they say, so that's what ransomware is. And they say, like, I have a decryption key, pay me $5 million and I'll give you the key for you to decrypt your data so you could resume business. In that particular case, the FBI was actually called in, the business shut down because the payment system was linked back to their various customers. And these are not the one-on-one individuals. These are companies. Yes. These are airlines. They're supplying jet fuel and so to the airlines.
Yes. So
and
with
if
one
you
hack,
lose
you
track
gain
of that
access to the
content,
customer base.
Yes, so they got access to that. They didn't know. You see, when these things first happen, you don't know. So they had to take it offline.
We're going to have to bring the discussion to a close now because we're getting close to the news. But I want to ask you, is there anything in your knowledge and experience within the Caribbean that has given us reason to be concerned up to now? We've been lucky so far, right?
Well, we have had incidents across the region. There is, under national security, there's something called the CSIRT, a Cybersecurity Incident Response Team. I had the opportunity under the OAS to attend a 2-week, what we call a boot camp, at the University of Leon in Spain. And at that in that training, I actually met a lot of the heads of the CSIRTs from across the region, and they all experiencing very similar problems. You have all the normal social media issues and the what we call the script kiddies attacking websites and so on. And some of them actually on different points along that continuum of the digital transformation. So what we realize in that sitting and in those trainings is that we need to build capacity. We need to start collaborating across the region, and we started to actually build up that network. The Trinidad and Tobago CSIRT, once you're certified as a CSIRT, which they are, you actually have formal communication links back to the different CSIRTs, because you cannot fight these type of activities as an individual. You cannot fight it as a single country. You have to band together in the region and as well as worldwide, because someone sitting in Russia could be attacking you locally, and vice versa.
It's an interconnected system, so there is
it's a worldwide
collaboration.
System. Yes.
No, so that's very, very interesting what you've said there.
Yeah.
So I just want to summarize one thing, and you can give me a yes or no or yes but answer, and it is this.
Yeah.
We have to do digitization. We have to do digitalization. We have to do digital transformation. We have to see from the customer's point of view in their interface with government. That's the citizen. We have to see businesses' point of view in their interface with government. We have to see the whole system as working together to facilitate competitiveness and innovation. And we have to look at the individual elements within the whole system to see where the problems are and how they can be dealt with. And part of that involves human transformation, and it involves the elimination of corruption. And ultimately, as you get into this situation, you have to deal with the issue of cybersecurity, or you're going to leave yourself vulnerable. Am I correct in assessing and summarizing the position?
That's yes. So you asked me to say yes or no. So I would say yes, you are correct.
Okay. You are showing me something on the map there now.
This is real-time attacks taking place around the world.
Okay. Happening now.
Yes. So these maps are actually online.
Okay. I'm going to have to close up the discussion.
Sure.
Because we have someone who is going to come and read the news so that people can know what is happening in the country and in the world. So I thank you for coming on the program. This has been a real pleasure. The information that you've shared from my point of view is very valuable. I hope our viewers and listeners also think so as well. And I think it's really valuable and significant information. And I now hand over to Shanil Al-Suran for the news.